Hi everyone, welcome back to Introduction to Tableau. In this video, we will be building our very first Tableau dashboard using Tableau Public. When you're building your first dashboard, you need to think about the following three elements: the purpose of your dashboard, the design of your dashboard, and the interactivity. To start off with purpose, ask yourself this question of who is your audience? And what questions do you want to answer? Especially when it comes to creating Tableau dashboards, these questions will be relevant because it also affects whether your audience members could access the data underneath your Tableau, how much access to row level data that you can give them through filters, and so on. The second aspect of creating the dashboard is the design. For example, will this dashboard be presented primarily like a PowerPoint slide, or will it be online on a website where your audience members can zoom in and zoom out and interact with the dashboard on their own terms? When you think about the design, some of the critical questions you should ask is the dashboard too crowded? Especially if the main purpose of the dashboard is to present it on a television in front of your audience members, then you need to think about whether your audience member could read the important messages, see the important graphs on the dashboards. And second, could the audience understand the dashboard quickly and accurately? If you crowd your dashboard too much, it's often difficult to figure out what the main point or main idea of the dashboard is. And third element you need to think about is interactivity. What kinds of filters would the audience want to use, and what additional information should the tooltip include? For example, you might be sharing a dashboard with various teams, and you know that each team would want to look at specific subset of data that is more relevant to them. In this case, instead of providing all the data on one dashboard, you can create a filter so that, for example, the sales team selling electronics could filter out the data so that they can only look at the graphs or tables using data related to electronics. For another instance, let's say there's a team that focuses on office supplies. And in that case, the team can filter out the data so that they would only view data related to products that their team is in charge of. In my perspective, there are two large types of Tableau dashboards. First ones look similar to what you see here. It looks very similar to PowerPoint slides or Google Slides that we traditionally use to give presentation. They typically have one graph or a couple of graphs on one slide, but what's important about them is they are very easy for your audience members to understand, and often you put one message, one graph per dashboard. So it works similar to one dashboard equals one slide in your presentation. And you can have filters so that your audience members could later on interact with your data, or if you are performing a live presentation, you can move around the filters to show different subsets of data. The second type of dashboard is one that looks more similar to this. It's almost as if you have a poster board in front of you and you get to mix and match various dashboards and types of graphs to provide more than one insight. This often is more useful if the audience members have access to the dashboards so that they can play around with different elements of dashboards on their own term and then focus on each element one at a time. If you do a presentation style speech using these kind of dashboard, one of the biggest challenge is that not everyone, especially if the audience is large and if you're presenting in a large room, not everyone may be able to see little details and fonts of the dashboard. Okay, Now that we briefly went over the steps we need to take in order to make our first dashboard, why don't we open Tableau Public and start creating our first dashboard? Okay, now that we open Tableau Public, we're going to start off by making a simple dashboard that includes one worksheet. So this is the worksheet that I'll be using. It shows the sum of sales by month of order date. So on the columns shelf, I have order date that is shown as month. And in the rows shelf, I have sum of sales. So I want to create a simple dashboard using this worksheet. If you haven't already, use this icon to create a new dashboard. And in my case, I'm going to title this Monthly Sales Report. Yes. And for the size of the worksheet, I could choose, for instance, PowerPoint 1600 by 900, but because I want you all to see the entirety of my screen, I'm going to set this at 800 times 500. Okay. Now I'm going to drag the line worksheet here. And because I want this to look like a PowerPoint slide dashboard, I will be creating a text box to make the title. What I can do that is I can drag text object above my worksheet and then type in the title. You can change the font to something that's a bold font and increase the size of the font and click OK. And adjust the height of the title to where it's appropriate. Then I am going to change the background of this text box by clicking on the text box, clicking on layout, and then scrolling down to background, and then you can click whichever background you want. And because I don't want my letter, in this case M, to be too close to the edge, I'm going to include an inner padding on the left side. Okay, now we have this inner padding on the left side so that the title of this slide is left aligned with enough margin so that it does not seem like it's crammed on the left side. Okay. And then this may look like a simple graph, but to take advantage of Tableau, I will create a few filters so that perhaps during the presentation, I can use filters to show different subsets of data, or after presentation, I can give access to the dashboards to my audience members so they can explore this graph using the filters on their own. To create the filter, I'm going to go back to the line worksheet. And from here, I'm going to create my two filters. First, I'll create the filter of month of the order date. I can do this by clicking right on month order date and then clicking on show filter. I also want to put a filter for a category, so I'm going to drag category from tables into filters. For now, I want to show all the categories of products. I click on right on category and then click on show filter. Okay, now I go back to the dashboard. And then to view the filters, I click down on more options, go down to filters, and then I'll do month of order date first, and then category as well. I want to put these filters under monthly sales report title. And I want them to be side by side. So one way I could do that is by going to objects and dragging horizontal container under monthly sales report. Now in this horizontal container, I'm going to drag month of order date and then category. Watch how the horizontal container turns dark blue when the filter box that I want is in the horizontal container. Okay, I'm going to adjust the height and then adjust the width. And I want to keep the month of order date as a scale filter. For category, I want it to be a multiple values drop down. Okay, now I will shrink the height. Okay. So now you have created two filters. Next, I'm going to change the title of the sheet from line to something similar to monthly sales for. Okay, the reason I left it as monthly sales for is after that, I want the title to show the category of products that is chosen on the filter. I can do this by clicking down on insert and then clicking at category. And I want people to notice that this value changes depending on how they use the filter. So to emphasize it, I will bold the text. Okay. So now, if you click all on the category, it says monthly sales for all. And if I unclick all of them and click furniture, it'll show monthly sales for furniture. The next thing that I want to look at is whether the x-axis and y-axis are in a format that's optimal for the data. Let's start off with the x-axis. My graph is showing monthly sales. So instead of years showing on the x-axis, I ideally want my x-axis to show month and the year. So we're going to change the format of x-axis by clicking right on month of order date, clicking on format, and then on the left, go to scale and click on dates. There are many types of dates I can choose, but I want my date to be in a format where it's month and then year. Now on the x-axis, I have tick marks showing month and year. For example, this point would be November 20th, and then at the other end of the x-axis, we have November 2024. I can also change the interval of tick marks by clicking right on month of order date and then clicking on edit axis. And then go to tick marks, and then I can choose a fixed tick marks where the start of the tick mark, let's say, starts at December 1st, 2021. And then the interval is in every 3 months.